Tune into Halftime Report. Well, one sector which is buzzing and has been buzzing off late is the paper space. Look at some of these stocks. JK Paper, that stock is up 12%. There's Sesha Sai Paper, West Coast Paper, all of them surging anywhere between 4.5% to 12%. And this has been the trend that we've been seeing in the month of June as well, and that continues for now. So let's try and understand what's happening with the paper industries. The stocks are buzzing in trade. Srikumar Krishnamurthy, Senior Vice President and Co-Group Head, Corporate Ratings at ICRA, is joining us now. Mr. Krishnamurthy, thank you so much for joining us on CNBC-TV18. I was just going through FY24 numbers for some of these paper names. They've not done so well. Even JK Paper has seen just 3.5% growth in their top line. What's happening with the paper industry? Do you think FY25 will be better than FY24? Is there a change in demand, or is it the pricing which is working in their favor?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'll give a bit of a perspective in terms of what happened in the paper industry post-COVID. Like everyone is aware that, COVID has been a tough period, more specifically for a sector like paper, where the consumption obviously falls down. Post-COVID, there has been a recovery. Here in the paper sector, we look at two subdivisions. One is your printing and writing paper. The other one is the packaging sector. The printing and writing paper, along with the newsprint, roughly contributes around 1/3 of the overall demand, while the balance 2/3 is largely represented by the broader packaging segment. Post-COVID, the first sector within the paper industry to kind of bounce back is the packaging because of your increasing e-commerce sales, etc. But more specifically, the kind of rebound that has happened post-COVID was more pronounced, starting with packaging, but then it followed with printing and writing paper, as well as the education institutions, and also the return to office culture as such, kind of supported. Not only the volumes, even the pricing was quite favorable. I'm talking about a period like financial year 22 or so. Following that year, while the volumes kind of stabilized, the realization still held high. It went in double digits, and we did observe an all-time high level of pricing. So that supported a significant growth on the top line for FY23 across the paper sector, including the packaging as well as the printing and writing. Coming to FY24, more importantly, this was a period where we saw a contraction in the pricing because of 2-3 factors. Here, to some extent, the packaging sector is also influenced by the movement in raw material prices, more specifically sector like craft. So as the RM prices, because of the global slowdown in consumption, fell, it has its own demand supply inequation. So that resulted in a crash in the prices. And also we did see a good amount of increasing imports of paper into India, which were coming at a kind of an unfavorable pricing. All this resulted in a double-digit reduction in the realizations for most of the paper sector. While the volumes were either flat or we saw low single-digit growth for a few of the players. So that's why we observed in FY24 across the industry, something like -3 to -5% kind of growth for our sample set in the paper industry. This includes both printing as well as the paper segment. This year FY25, what we see is that the prices should kind of stabilize, and the volume growth should pick up as against the low single digit growth that we have seen on the volumes in FY24. We expect the overall revenue to be roughly around 6 to 9% in FY25, would be largely volume led driven kind of growth, while the prices will still remain at around the similar levels and will remain exposed to this vagaries of input price threat.
All right, so let's talk about two things then that you spoke about. You said that this industry will grow 6 to 9% in volumes in FY25. What is your outlook or prognosis for the input costs for FY25? That's one. And secondly, if you could break this 6 to 9% growth down for us among the sectors of the paper industry, how much do you expect the printing guys to grow at? How much do you expect the craft paper to grow at?
All right. So here again, the consumption is kind of quite varied. At a larger picture, we see that the per capita usage is still very low, roughly around 15 to 16 kgs as against a global standard of over 50 kg. So from a fundamental standpoint, the per capita usage remains low and will be supporting. Talking about PWP segment, the generic demand and also the adoption of, let's say, a policy initiative, something like your new education policy will obviously support the demand. For a packaging segment, we do see the influence of the specialized and the kind of conventional packaging that we see in sectors like something like FMCG, healthcare, and other pharma sectors. All these are kind of supporting the demand growth. While we are expecting the volume growth to be higher for the packaging segment as compared to the printing segment, largely the fact is that the trade activities always will be supporting the growth over there. From a realization standpoint, while we say that it is likely to remain range bound, this largely comes from the fact that the threat of imports is very much there. Between segments, one will have to see. PWP segment has its own demand supply dynamics, irrespective of the movement in prices. To some extent, the players have a relatively higher organized share and they are able to kind of command a premium. But when it comes to the packaging, that kind of thing is not there. So it's largely influenced by the movement in RM prices. Here again, should the global consumption improve, that's when possibly one would see an improvement in the raw material prices. So till that point of time, we expect it to remain a bit subdued.
Okay. Two-part question here, Mr. Krishnamurthy. First, you spoke about raw material prices as well, and there have been some street chatter or channel checks that I would suggest. They said because of the raw material prices, there was some pressure in FY24, but now maybe those things could reverse. Can you give us a sense of how raw material prices are panning out right now? And with the new education policy and the demand improving, how much will capacity utilization go up from here on? Are we seeing more capacity addition in the industry itself?
Okay, from a capacity utilization standpoint, to answer you first, what we see is that substantial investments have happened more specifically in the packaging segment. This is just post-COVID. Sizable capacities have come in over there, largely anticipating the sustenance of demand over a longer period of time. These capacities are currently getting absorbed, but unfortunately, with the higher influx of imports, the capacity utilization was affected in FY24. One would like to see from our channel check, what we understood was that close to 7 to 8% of the sales is getting reinvested, in the capacities, either for upgradation of the technological requirements and also for the generic improvement in the demand. I missed your first question, sorry.
That was on raw material prices.
Yeah, on the raw material prices. So here, okay, see here when we look at the cost structure, it is like either your wood pulp or the waste paper and the energy costs. So last year when I said the PWP realizations came down, the writing paper realizations came down by 20-odd%. The RM prices fell down by over 25-odd%. So still, to that extent of, catch up didn't happen. This year, what we see is that, the prices are kind of holding up. We would expect that, the kind of activities to pick up and to support. Since it is also influenced by the global factors, it would be very difficult to comment on the movement in the RM prices on a long-term basis. But at this point of time, within the paper sector, we need to see what gets influenced significantly by the movement in the RM prices. One such segment is the kraft paper, because this is a relatively commoditized segment and generally remains exposed to the very sharp movement in RM prices. Despite favorable demand supply dynamics over there, one big factor that influences their margins, etc., is the RM prices, which has kind of played out per se.
Okay, all right, Mr. Krishnamurthy, thank you so much for joining us today and making sense of what's happening in the paper industry. The stocks have been buzzing off late, so it's good to get some expert perspective as well. Time for a break now on the